All right. Happy Thursday. So let's just get right into the news. Before we do that, a sad update on Dianne Feinstein. I found out from from Stephen Colbert that after her office released that she was retiring, reporters asked her about it, which, normal that they would ask her about it. I'd forgotten she was 89, so her memory problems make even more sense now because she is old. Um, However, I mean, she should have retired before the last election because I believe we already knew about her memory problems then. But when she was asked about her retirement announcement, she had no clue that a statement was released. She just went on about how if I have something to announce, I'll announce it, and people are like, but we announced it. You did? She forgot. She had no clue. I don't know how many minutes later she went on about remembering that she had announced retirement. But this is why she needed to retire, because this is not good. Granted, she's still more competent than a lot of the senators on the Republican side, but still not good. Not good at all that she forgets from 1 minute to the next what she's doing or what she's saying. And I worry that she's going to try to still take her seat after 2024, forgetting that she isn't in Congress anymore, which is sad. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get to the world news. Russia launched missile strikes across Ukraine, Ukrainian officials said, after Western allies pledged to ramp up military aid to the Ukrainian armed forces to support a planned counter-offensive. Ukrainian officials said air defenses in the south downed 8 caliber missiles fired from a ship in the Black Sea, but other missiles struck northern and western Ukraine. Two women were pulled from the rubble in Karamanas and a mother and two children were rescued from the city of Antakya as rescue efforts shifted to getting relief to survivors 9 days after a deadly earthquake. Okay. I heard, now this was from the Daily Show. Why am I getting all my news from comedy shows? And I assure you, what I'm telling you now, what I'm reading is not from a comedy show. It's from Reuters. But why am I getting details from a comedy show? Anyway, apparently one guy who was rescued was surviving on protein powder and urine. Ew. But, he survived. He survived long enough to be rescued, so hey, whatever works. Whatever you have to do. Let's see here. Indian tax officials examined mobile phones and laptops used by some BBC editorial and administrative employees as an inspection at the British broadcasters' offices in New Delhi and Mumbai entered a third day. Tax officials had remained at the BBC offices, some sleeping there, since the surprise inspection was launched. Others said some employees were questioned on financial transactions late into the night, because that's a totally normal thing that tax officials do. I mean, that doesn't sound like they're just doing Narendra Modi's bidding or anything. No, not at all. All right. Scientists studying Antarctic's vast Thwaites Glacier, nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier because good things always come from something called doomsday, say warm water is seeping into its weak spots, worsening melting caused by rising temperatures. Two papers published in Nature Journal showed. Thwaites, which is roughly the size of Florida, represents more than half a meter of global sea level rise potential. Okay, so for those of us who aren't well versed in the metric, let's see, 0.5 meters to feet. 1.6 feet, so about 1.5 feet. That's a significant rise. That is a significant rise. I see why it's called Doomsday. All right. Avian flu has reached new corners of the globe and become endemic for the first time in some wild birds that transmit the virus to poultry, according to veterinarians and disease experts who warn it is now a year-round problem. They said the prevalence of the virus in the wild signals that record outbreaks will not abate soon on poultry farms, wrapping up threats to the world's food supply. And, of course, my favorite meat is chicken. So, yay me. And yay anyone who likes chicken. But, yeah, doesn't sound like the poultry in the wild are getting any... This is bad news for both birds and poultry. So, birds and chickens. Alright, yes, I know chickens are birds. Yes, I'm well aware of that. Alright, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari gave approval to the central bank to extend the deadline to turn in old banknotes by another 60 days after cash shortages stoked anger ahead of presidential and parliamentary elections next week. Nigeria's central bank decided last year to start circulating newly designed 1,500 and 200 Naira notes. Oh my god. Okay. The US occasionally gets new designs on their money. We do not have to go to the bank and exchange for the new currency. We just use it until it's slowly sent out of circulation because there's enough of the new money. So why isn't that a thing outside of the US? And I say that because I remember years ago, Modi tried to I think it was Modi, tried to singularly tank India's economy by taking certain denominations of the rupee, I think it was of the rupee, out of circulation, but that just caused mass chaos instead. So, yeah, maybe just slowly take things out of circulation as opposed to a wholesale. Okay, we're going to stop doing this now. I think the only coin you could take out of circulation and nobody would be bothered, at least in the US, and I'm pretty sure it would be in other countries as well, is the penny. Nobody likes those things. So that you could probably just one day decide that the penny is going to be taken out of circulation. Nobody's going to accept pennies anymore, and nobody would care. Other than that, maybe do a slowly slowly make these changes as opposed to, okay, your money's worthless now. Go and get new ones because yeah. Yeah, then you end up with things like we don't have enough money to go around. All right. So, let's end this with business and oh wait. I don't think I did US news yet. So we'll end with US news. Let's go to business and markets. The dollar stalled as investors showed a higher risk appetite on signs the overall global growth outlook is improving following a slew of strong US economic data, even as the Federal Reserve looks to raise interest rates further. Data from the U.S. Commerce Department showed that retail sales in the United States rebounded sharply in January after 2 straight monthly declines, driven by purchases of motor vehicles and other goods. Okay, I'm very confused. The dollar stalled, but yet our economy is doing well. I'm very confused. To me, that sounds like a contradiction, but okay. China's Commerce Ministry said it put Lockheed Martin Corp and Raytheon Technologies Corp onto unreliable entities list over arms sales to Taiwan, its latest sanctions against the 2 U.S. defense contractors. The regulations prohibit the corporations from engaging in import and export activities related to China, according to the Commerce Ministry statement. Well, that makes sense. I think Taiwan is theirs, so they certainly wouldn't want Taiwan to be able to defend itself from a hostile takeover from, say, China. So that makes sense. U.S. government should face a patent lawsuit over COVID-19 vaccines, not vaccine maker Moderna Incorporated, the Department of Justice told a Delaware federal court. The Justice Department's court filing said the United States should be liable for any infringement of Arbutus Biopharma Corp. And Genevant Sciences GmbH's patents that took place under Moderna's contract to provide shots to the government's nationwide vaccination effort. I have no idea what I just read. So, okay, I really can't respond because I have no idea what's going on. I did read that Moderna backtrack on something, but I don't remember, and this makes no sense to me. Charlie Munger, the longtime business partner of Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated, said China remains a top opportunity for investors despite geopolitical risks. Munger also doubled down on his recent Wall Street Journal editorial calling for the U.S. government to follow China and ban cryptocurrency, saying people who oppose my positions are idiots. The 99-year-old spoke at the annual meeting of Daily Journal Corp. Okay. Activist investors are renewing their year-long efforts to break up some of Germany's most venerable companies, seeing streamlining as promising route to reviving share prices as Europe's top economy emerges from the energy crisis. This week, Brenntag became the latest target of investors who called for the chemicals distributor to spin off its specialties unit. Okay, let's get away from gobbledygook and let's move on to the U.S. news. Actress Raquel Welch, who helped reshape the traditional image of the Hollywood sex symbol in an era when the movie industry was still overtly defining an idealized version of sensuality for mass consumption, died at age 82. Her death following a brief illness was confirmed. Her death following a brief illness was confirmed in a statement released by her Los Angeles-based manager. President Joe Biden, 80, will undergo closely watched physical examination ahead of an expected announcement that he is seeking a second 4-year term. Biden's session with the doctors at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in nearby Bethesda, Maryland, will be his second extensive exam since he took office in January 2021. I just love it how they in articles like this they mention his age. Nowhere else but when it comes to his health, because that somehow is meaningful. If he's healthy, he's healthy. I mean, talk about his age if something is found that's age related. Then mention his age. That's perfectly fine. That makes sense, but okay. Hundreds of irate residents of the Ohio town where a train derailed and spilled toxic chemicals packed into a high school gym seeking answers to what health dangers they face. East Palestine Mayor Trent Conway, looking angry and tired, said at Wednesday's town hall that he wanted to help provide some reassurance to the 4,700 citizens of his town and hold to account those responsible for the train derailment. President Joe Biden plans to make his most extensive remarks yet about a high-altitude Chinese balloon and 3 other objects that were shot down. Senator Mark Kelly says Congress should consider mandating transponders on high-altitude weather and research balloons to help the military differentiate between potential threats. The issue has drawn new attention in recent days after fighter jets shut down a Chinese balloon and 3 other objects. And I agree with Senator Kelly. I mean, why not? Because otherwise fighter jets are going to say, ooh, we don't know what that is. Let's shoot first, ask questions later. Now, I understand some of these things were in civilian aircraft airspace. I get that, but at the same time, this is expensive equipment and research and whatnot. So maybe not destroy people's research and, make sure that this is something that should be shot down, because they went from not noticing the Chinese balloon until it was over Montana, and then waiting for it to go over water before they shot it down, to just going completely nuts with the shooting down objects. So yeah. Right. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley called on Republicans to move on from stale ideas and faded names, a veiled swipe at her former boss Donald Trump as she made her first stop in the campaign for the 2024 presidential nomination. The former South Carolina governor is just the second Republican to seek the party's backing to challenge Democratic President Joe Biden, 80, who is expected to seek re-election next year. I have mixed emotions about them, again, mentioning his age, because on the one hand, okay, considering she's talking about new blood, the age makes sense, but is it really that necessary? He's been president since 2020. People should know that he's an old man. I mean, 80 is a lot. 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 80 I don't know. Maybe I'm just being super sensitive about it. Anyway, the father of the Illinois man accused of killing 7 people and injuring dozens at a 4th of July parade in a Chicago suburb was indicted by a grand jury, local NBC5 reported. Robert Cremo Jr. is accused of helping his son obtain a state firearms license in 2019 when he sponsored his application for a firearms owner identification card, despite knowing his son was unfit to own a gun. Good. I mean, I get that parents want to make their kids happy and not put any obstacles in their way, but how exactly is this helping anybody? The kid is now in jail. So, how did you help him exactly? Oh, yeah, you helped him get a gun, and now he's in a worse position than he would have been if you just didn't let him have a gun. But speaking of mass shootings, the mass shooter in Buffalo, the kid who shot up a Buffalo supermarket because of racial hatred, he got life. And he claimed that in his apology that he learned his racial hatred from what he read on the internet. Now, I know that the internet can radicalize people. I get that. But at what point do you look at it and say, this is bullshit? Because you had to start a path down that rabbit hole. You had to start a path down that rabbit hole. So he was not in a good place to begin with. Because I spend a lot of time online. I can happily avoid all of those racial hatred websites because that wasn't my starting point to begin with. So, I don't know. I don't know how, I get that you can go down a rabbit hole, but these are probably people who have a non-functioning BS meter to begin with, that they can actually go down the rabbit hole. So I'm not going to feel that sorry for him because, yes, rabbit holes exist and you can fall down that, but where were you to begin with that allowed this rabbit hole to even open? So, and with that, I believe I am done with this edition, and I will see you guys tomorrow.